Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So the Washington football team heads off to Arizona in week number 2 to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Both teams come into the game at 1-0. We'll have more on this game and a prediction for it later on in the show. But I wanted to start by talking about the expectations of this game and what can be learned and gained from this game and the outcome of it. So Vegas currently has Washington as 7-point dogs in this game. So Arizona is -7. And that was the line to start the week. So obviously Vegas not all that impressed with what Washington did on Sunday, and more so impressed with what Arizona was able to do going on the road and beating the San Francisco 49ers. So what that essentially says is that for all the hoopla and all the praise that Washington received, people still don't believe. And that's a good thing, okay? Trust me. I'm not asking people to jump on board after 1 week. I'm the one cautioning everyone else about jumping on board and thinking that 1 week means that this team is going to be 11-5 this season. But what I want to talk about, because I was in the comment section of the Washington Football Nightly premiere the other night, chopping it up with you guys in the chat discussion. And I can't remember if it was Rufio or if it was the 20th Mike or who I was talking to. It might have been Door Gunner. I can't remember who exactly. I want to say it was Rufio, but somebody said, and we were talking back and forth in the comment section as the video premiered, and one of them said, you know, this is a game that's going to kind of change the narrative if they're able to win. And, you know, I had long said that I don't know if the Arizona game is going to be one that is a statement maker if they were to win. But after Arizona goes on the road and wins, it's all of a sudden taken on a new meaning, has this football game. Had Arizona come into this game at 0-1, but their offense was still dynamic, you know, even if you go there and win and slow down Kyler Murray and that offense, people are still going to be looking at you out of the side of their eye like, oh, okay, that's cool, that's cute. You're 2-0, whatever, get out of our face. But now that they went to San Francisco and won, and a lot of people think that Arizona can be good this year, this game kind of takes on a new meaning if Washington is able to go on the road and win. Because I think a lot of people assume that Arizona's the better team. They're ready to take that step. Kyler Murray is a player that some people have said could win MVP this season. I don't agree with that. I think he's going to take a nice leap forward this season. And that was a hell of a start to his season. You know, over 200 yards passing, almost another 100 yards rushing, and a come-from-behind victory on the road against the NFC defending champions. But I think he's still got a ways to go before you start putting him in that conversation. If Russell Wilson hasn't even gotten an MVP vote yet in his first 7-8 years of his career, what makes you think that a guy like Kyler Murray is ready to jump a Russell Wilson and get his hands on an MVP trophy? But that's no here nor there. That's a different discussion for a different day. What I'm saying is a lot of people think Kyler Murray is going to take a quantum leap this year. And with that leap comes his team's success. And so I think this win, if Washington is able to go and get it, will start to change the narrative of the outward perception of this football team. I think a lot of people said, oh man, it's a great story for Ron Rivera and that Washington football team. Rivera's been through a lot this offseason. The organization as a whole has been through a lot and is still going through a lot, but that's still not a good football team. That was an impressive defensive performance, but that's still not a good football team. I think that's still the perception outwardly right now. You go to Arizona and win, I think that narrative begins to change a bit. And instead of being a 3 or 4.5 point dog next week at Cleveland, you probably go into that Cleveland game as a favorite if you win. Now, I'm jumping the gun here, and I want to know what you guys think. Do you think a win against the Arizona Cardinals changes the narrative potentially about this team moving forward in this season? I think this win could go a long way in doing that if, in fact, it is gotten and it's done in impressive fashion. We'll see. I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was an interesting take by, I want to say it was Rufio, might have been 20th Mike again. I can't remember exactly who said it. I was talking to so many people that night. But I think it's an interesting take, and I think it is one that is worth noting because right now I think this team is still seen as one of the worst teams in football. Still, hey, they can play some defense, but they're still a bad football team. They don't believe in Dwayne Haskins still. They don't believe in this offense still, and rightfully so. Offense was not impressive. I've told you this, and if you haven't already done so, get in on this Patreon because we went through that. I mean, I literally combed through that film, and again, almost 2 hours of film of the offensive breakdown. And I told you, Scott Turner did some really good things, and I got confident. I got more confidence leaving week one about Scott Turner and the prospects for this offense moving forward than I did coming into the season. And again, I'm not saying much by making that statement because I got to actually see it. It's one thing to try to project and guess not knowing, and it's another thing to actually see tangible evidence and be able to say, okay, I see what this guy's doing. This is going to work if guys execute moving forward. So as guys become more comfortable and are have a better feel for what to do in this offense and start to adjust to how teams are playing them, I think you're going to see some really big plays made by this offense. And I think this is an interesting topic. Can't wait to read your comments on this. So let's move on to in other news, where we heard from both Coach Rivera and running backs coach Randy Jordan after Friday's practice. So we'll talk about what they had to say. I am fascinated by Randy Jordan. He talked in the offseason, and I just love this guy's approach. And we'll hear from Randy Jordan a little bit later on. I'll talk about what he had to say. Same with Rivera. But before we get to that, I want to take a look at the injury report one final time before we head into the weekend and take a look at what these two teams are bringing to the table. So for the Arizona Cardinals, their practice hasn't taken place yet because they're out on the West Coast. So we probably won't hear from them until a little bit later on. But here's the skinny on Arizona before we finish up talking about Washington's injury report for the weekend. Their starting center is Mason Cole. He hasn't practiced all week with a hamstring injury. I don't think he's playing, okay? When you don't practice Wednesday, you don't practice Thursday, the likelihood of him all of a sudden coming back and miraculously feeling great after a Friday practice, which will at best be limited, I don't see them pushing the envelope with a hamstring injury with a guy that they're going to need moving forward. So their starting center may be out of this game in Mason Cole. You look at their safety, Jalen Thompson. That was a starter for them, but you can see he's been put on IR, so he's already out. Now, is that long-term IR or is that short-term IR? Who cares? Doesn't make any difference to us. He's not playing this weekend. That's all we care about. So their starting safety is gone. And I'm telling you right now, their starting tight end, Max Williams, won't be playing in this game either. Ankle injury, didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday. He's not, again, much like I said with Mason Cole, he's not miraculously going to practice on Friday, feel excellent, and then play. I think that's a guy that more likely than not is going to be out in week number 2, and that's good news for us. So 3 of their starters on their football team may be out for this game, but the rest of those guys that you see limited, full, those guys have minimal impact on the game. Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, there's nothing wrong with those guys. As we talked about yesterday, they were out for non-injury related reasons. They both fully practiced on Thursday. They're playing, so don't even assume that they're even on the injury report. I don't even know why they're up there other than the fact that they didn't practice on Wednesday. And again, that was non-injury related. So you're getting 3 guys that are impactful to their team potentially not playing in this game. So hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that. Now when you get to our side of things, the same 3 guys, and I told you, I was blown away by the injury report when it was first released on Wednesday and even into Thursday. Just looking at it, it seemed foreign to me. I almost felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. This can't be our team, and I'm going to knock on a little bit of wood once more. And I don't want to speak it into existence. And it was funny. I was reading the comments of the video yesterday when I was premiering it, and someone in the comment section said, hey, look, man, don't start bringing this stuff up. Matter of fact, it was in the comment section after the video posted. So it's like, yo, don't start talking that stuff. Don't put that in the atmosphere. Don't bring that stuff into existence. And you're right. And I almost feel bad about talking about it now, but injuries are a part of the game. And so I just feel crazy knowing that we've only got 3 guys on the injury report. I mean, when is the last time you can remember us having 3 guys on the injury report? I remember at one point, Jay Gruden would come up and the first 4 minutes of his press conference would be all injury-related stuff, and he'd have to go through this long laundry list of guys that are injured and whether they practiced or not, or, what's their status for the upcoming game, or what injuries they incurred in the game that just happened the day before. And we have none of that right now. Let's keep it that way. But the 3 guys on the injury report have been Kendall Fuller with a knee. Cole Holcomb injured his leg on Sunday. And Thomas Davis had a calf muscle injury. And so both Fuller and Davis had practiced fully on Wednesday and Thursday. Both of them were limited in practice today. I think that's more of a precautionary measure, but you never know with some of these injuries. They could flare up at any time. Both of those guys have been listed as questionable. If you would have asked me this yesterday, I would have put both of those guys as probable. So in my mind, they've been downgraded to questionable with practicing on a limited basis today. I think it's more of a precautionary measure taken. Neither one of those guys need to push it too hard going into Sunday's game. I think both of those guys will be active and able to go. Meanwhile, Cole Holcomb is out, and I told you that would be the case because he didn't practice Wednesday. He did not practice Thursday. You don't practice on Wednesday and Thursday. It's one thing not to practice on Wednesday. You don't practice on Thursday at all. I mean, if you're going to play, more likely than not, you're going to be at least limited on Thursday. He was out again. I told you I didn't expect him to be back, and I think the fact that Thomas Davis, more likely than not, will be back makes them feel comfortable with Cole Holcomb not being available for Sunday's game. So that's the injury report. That's the last one we'll get before the game, but obviously we'll keep our eyes peeled as we get closer to Sunday's kickoff because as last week we found out with guys like Miles Sanders and Lane Johnson not making the trip to Washington, you never know what could spring up the day before or 2 days before the game or before kickoff. Guys that are questionable ultimately don't go, or guys that are doubtful are ultimately ruled out. We'll see what happens. But for the most part, Arizona's going to have their entire team intact. I told you the 3 guys that more likely than not are starters and key contributors that won't play on Sunday. Their center Mason Cole, their safety Jalen Thompson is already out of the game. He's been placed on IR, and their starting tight end Max Williams more likely than not will be out of this game as well. But let's get to one more thing before I start talking about the coaches and what they had to say. Make sure you join me for the overtime series after the game. Soon as the game meets its conclusion, I'll be here live with you for an hour on Washington Football Overtime, talking about the game and what went right, what went wrong, how did we reach the outcome of that game, and looking forward to chopping up. And hopefully we're going to be just as excited as we were last week after the game was over this week after the game is over. So looking forward to chopping it up with you guys after the game is over here on the Louie T Network for Washington Football Overtime. Also, I really feel strongly about giving you guys on Patreon some film breakdown of the Cardinals and what to look for. I'm more compelled now than I was before. After I went back and watched their game against San Francisco again, and I'm more compelled now to give you something than I was before because I was wrong about one thing and I'm really excited about another thing. The one thing that I was wrong about is Kyler Murray looking to run. He doesn't want to run, guys. If it's not a called run and he has options, he's not looking to run. He wants to throw the football. And even when he runs, it's not necessarily reluctantly, but I told you he doesn't want to get hit. He does not want contact. He is contact adverse. I'm going to show you this on film. And also, Nick Bosa was dominant in this game. And I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking, why can't Chase Young do the same thing? They came from the same school. They learned the same techniques. Him and Nick Bosa are good friends. I would be shocked if Chase didn't put in a phone call to say, hey, man, I watched your tape. I watched your film. You were kicking DJ Humphrey's ass all day. What are some of the things that you saw? What were some tells? What made you know that you could beat him to the inside as often as you did in this football game? Because I'm going to break down the film. I think I have to do this if I'm sober enough this weekend. I'm going to give you guys some bonus film on Patreon, taking a look at some of this Arizona Cardinals film. I think some of this stuff is good. And I talked about getting your hands on the football. I'm going to show you all of this in a film breakdown. Hopefully, sometime Saturday, you'll get this so you can get a chance to look at it before Sunday's kickoff. So anyway, Ron Rivera stepped to the podium. I thought he had some interesting things to say. He had more of an overall big picture view talking about the game. He talked about Kyler Murray again, which is the focal point of this week's matchup. And he talked about how Murray doesn't want to run. And that's the thing that when I went back and watched, it was funny that Coach Rivera talked about it, because I was sitting down watching the game and I was saying I was absolutely wrong thinking that this guy was just tucking and running. That's not what he did at all in this game. Most of his runs were called runs, the ones that he had big plays on, but the ones that weren't, this guy's searching and probing, and he's approaching the line of scrimmage, and he's trying to find someone to throw the football to. Like, he's not just taking off and running. He wants to find someone to throw the football to. He doesn't want to get hit. I can assure you of that, and I told you guys that already, but that reinforced it for me. He does not. He's a smaller guy. He doesn't want to get hit, and so he's not looking to run, but he will run if he has to, and he can be dynamic when he does decide to take off. So Rivera talked about that he's not just a guy that's looking to run, but he wants to throw the football. He'll escape the pocket and extend to try to find someone down the field, and that's something that I was wrong about, because he definitely does that, and watching this game kind of hammered that home. Also, Rivera talked about, practice, and he said, look, him and head athletic trainer Ryan Vermillion had come to this consensus when they were in Carolina that most of their soft tissue injuries took place once practice exceeded 2 hours and 30 minutes. So he says generally his practices don't exceed 2 hours and 30 minutes, because once you get past that 2 hour and 30 minute mark, you get into the danger zone of guys potentially injuring themselves. So he talked about the length of his practice and how he got to that point with that decision-making process of 2 hour and 30 minute practices, or something a little shy of that. He also talked about the field and the conditions of the field. Remember, FedEx Field has never been a model of NFL football fields. However, he talked about the field being in pretty good shape, and there was a little bit of shade in his comment. He pretty much said, hey, look, when you're just playing football games on the field, it's in pretty good shape. That's a knock on, Daniel Snyder. And look, NFL owners are looking to make money off of their stadiums any way they can. So that means if somebody's got a tour and they're coming to D.C., they want them, or in that, DMV area, they want them to come to FedEx Field and have their concert. They want those soccer games there. Any revenue that they can generate off of their stadium, they're looking to do so. And Rivera's pretty much saying because of COVID, nobody's doing anything. And that's all they're doing is playing football on it. So as long as you're just playing football on the field, the turf and everything else is pretty much intact. It's fine. So he talked about that. And then he talked about Chase Young. He said, a question was posed to him. Well, what do you want to see from, both Dwayne and Chase? And the theme was consistent across the board. He said, I just want to see consistency, better play earlier from both of those guys. He thought that both got off to slow starts in Sunday's win over Philadelphia, and that they both started to come on as the game progressed. He'd like to see them get off to faster starts and be more consistent throughout the ball game. And so that's what he's looking for from two of his young star players. As far as head running backs coach Randy Jordan is concerned, he talked a lot about Antonio Gibson, and rightfully so. That's the guy most people are enamored with right now. He's the guy that everyone thinks could be the star of this group when it's all said and done. And I think that he's a guy that most people are excited about. And after seeing him in week 1, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited. He talked about something that I talked about on the film breakdown on Patreon, and that's the 20-yard run that he had. That thing could have popped. I talked about that. I think I talked about it on the overtime show with you guys initially, and then I talked about it again on the film when we broke the rundown. And it was a great play design, good blocking by everybody, and Terry did his job down the field. And my biggest gripe with Antonio there was all he needed to do was just keep straight. He was just trying to do too much on that run, and that's exactly what Randy Jordan said. And I said that 3 days ago when I had the film on Patreon. He was doing too much, and Randy Jordan said there's a saying that they have in the running back room, and it's see a little, see a lot. And he said, so he explained what that means, see a little, see a lot. And he said that's just pretty much having a narrow focus as a running back. The more you see, the more you think you can do, the less you ultimately actually get accomplished. When you narrow your focus and you concentrate on one thing, it opens up. So see a little means you see a lot more of what could potentially come your way. And essentially he said Antonio Gibson's eyes got big. He got wide-eyed when he saw all the space out there. And instead of him focusing in on what am I going to do and how am I going to approach this block and where am I going to cut off of it, he got wide-eyed and he saw the defender coming out of his peripheral. He saw the block in his mind, hey, if I get on the outside of this block, this guy won't be able to catch me. But really, I don't think that guy catches him. And if he does, it's going to take him a while. That run isn't 20 yards if he just keeps straight. And honestly, it's a safety at that. It's McLeod. At 230, I've seen this guy run through arm tackles. I've seen him run through feeble tackle attempts. I would love to have seen him just keep straight and force this guy to not only catch you, but bring you down to the ground. But he'll learn from it. As Jordan said, he should have kept straight. He was trying to do too much. He said, honestly, Jordan said he didn't think that McLeod would have caught him. I think McLeod would have caught him. However, I don't think he would have caught him for a while, and he may not have even made the tackle once he caught up. You never know. But that's nor here nor there. He said those are things he'll learn from. Narrow your focus. Don't try to do too much, and try to hit your landmarks. These are all things that Gibson is continuing to grow, and as he gets more experience, Jordan said he'll become better at these things. And then he was asked about Bryce Love and his development, and he said, Randy Jordan said, man, I love this kid because he is a hard worker and he's humble. And those are two things that Randy Jordan swears by, is being a hard worker and being humble. And he said that this guy is ready to go when his number is going to finally be called. And he said, he thinks that Bryce Love's going to contribute on his team down the road. But, right now he just wants him to continue to work hard and prepare for that opportunity whenever it does present itself. So he's healthy. He's ready to go. And whenever he gets that call, Bryce Love will be ready to step in and contribute in any way he can. That's how Randy Jordan feels at this point. He also talked about Peyton Barber and why the coaching staff was so comfortable with Barber late in the game. Because remember, I questioned whether Antonio Gibson was even healthy, in the fourth quarter, because we just didn't see a lot of him. They decided to go with J.D. McKissick in, passing situations when they felt like they needed to throw it, when they went to the gun, and when they knew they were going to run it, they put Peyton Barber in the game. And so we didn't see a lot of Antonio Gibson late in the game. He was in there sparingly. And it was amazing because it was a drastic turn of events. Stark contrast from the first half where this guy was in a ton. And then in the second half, it's like, okay, we got to put the guys in the game that we trust. And Randy Jordan pretty much said, look, 41's played a lot of snaps in this league, J.D. McKissick. He said also 34's played a bunch of snaps in this league, Peyton Barber. And so we trust those guys, and not to say that we don't trust Antonio Gibson, but those guys are veterans. And he said everyone's got a role on the team. And this is absolutely 100% fact, because Peyton Barber is your in-between the tackles grinder. That we knew that when we signed him. Even when AD was here, I was telling you Peyton Barber was going to be his backup. Why? Because he's a similar type of back. In between the tackles, first and second down, grinder. He's a physical back in between the tackles. That's his role in this team. When we got down into the red zone, when we got inside the 5-yard line, when we got 4th and 1, who was the guy on the field? Late in the game, short yardage. Who was the guy in the game? It's Peyton Barber. That's who they trust in those situations. And so the question was, When will we get to a point where Antonio Gibson is that guy that you trust in those situations? And he said, we don't know when that's going to take place. We don't know, but he said everyone's got a role and everyone needs to be ready because you don't know when your number is going to be called. So just continue to prepare, continue to put yourself in a position to be ready, that when you are being thrusted into the game, you can be ready to take advantage of that opportunity. So, I love what Randy Jordan had to say, because I thought all these guys kind of played well. And he said one of the things that he's stressing to these backs is that you need to be able to take a 3-yard run and make it a 7-yard run. You need to be able to take that 7-yard run and make it a 15-yard run. And in the case of Gibson, he told him that 20-yard run should have been a 60-yard run. Like, we've got to take all of these runs, maximize them, and then get more. And he says we're capable of doing that. And that's what the special backs in this league do, is they take what's there and add to it. And he says he wants to see these guys do that more. And I think they'll have a chance to do exactly that this coming weekend versus the Arizona Cardinals. So with that being said, let's get to our final segment, which is final outcome. So this week we're on the road at Arizona. Both teams come into the contest 1-0 after come from behind victories against teams that won their respective divisions a season ago. Washington's coming at home. Arizona's coming on the road. As I mentioned already, Arizona 7-point favorites in this game. A lot of people expect the Cardinals to take care of business and leave this game at 2-0. I'm not going to lie to you. Early in the week, I thought that same exact way. But, and I talked about this on my podcast, my heart got the best of me in this one, because my head is saying Arizona's the better team more likely than not and probably going to come out on top. But my heart is saying, you watched the film, you're not overly impressed, which I wasn't. You watched your film, and you were more impressed with the team after watching it, which I was. And you look at your defense, which is the strength of your team. You look at Arizona's football team, you look at their offense, that's the strength of their team. When two strengths meet, and one is offense and one is defense, usually defense wins out. Now again, how good is this defense? We're going to find out, because if you talk about elite offense versus elite defense always crushes elite offense. It's rare that it happens the other way. Elite offense usually succumbs to elite defense in this league 9 times out of 10. And so if this defense is elite, which we're not 100% sure of yet, okay? 1 week does not make you elite. The Cardinals aren't elite on offense, but they're getting close with Kyler Murray and now the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. They're becoming dangerous offensively. If they can put it all together offensively, they could be elite. If we can put it all together defensively, we could become elite. If these two things clash, defense is supposed to win, and that's what's playing in my mind over and over again. After I watched the tape, and I told you I'm going to give you something on Patreon because you got to see this stuff. So if you're not a patron, you got to get in so you don't miss out on this. But when I watched the film, I saw Nick Bosa dominate. And I'm saying to myself, why can't Chase Young do that? They batted the ball in the air and picked off Kyler Murray. Why can't we do that? I talked about that yesterday when we took a look behind enemy lines. I said, we got to get our hands up. You can affect the game. A lot of short passes. We're going to break all of that down in the film study. A lot of short passes. I told you, they're going to go with the quick pass game. Their game plan last week against Arizona or against San Francisco, not going to be that dissimilar from what they do against us. Remember, we're trying to copy the template and the blueprint that the 49ers set last year. We're trying to duplicate that on the defensive side of the football. So the Cardinals looked at San Francisco and said, we don't want their pass rushers having a chance to tee off on Murray. So we're going to get rid of the football early and often. What do you think they're going to do against us? So we're going to break that stuff down. But I said all of that to say this. I think the offense has a chance. I'm not impressed with Arizona's defense. I'm going to just be brutally honest with you. I think they've got some pieces, but they're far from a dominant unit. You can move the football on them. And San Francisco made some mistakes in that game. Like they had a punt block. They were up 10-0 and dominating that game. They have a punt blocked. We can't allow those types of mistakes to take place. That punt block changed the entire complexity of the game. Arizona scored a touchdown 2 plays later. Now it's 10-7. It's a totally different ball game. what I'm saying to you is they can be exploited on the defensive side of the football. This offense needs to take that next step, and it may not come in week 2. There's still a lot of growth and learning for this offense to do, but this is one of those teams you can get healthy off of offensively. Like, if the offense wants to gain some confidence, you can do it against this Arizona Cardinals defense. They're not great defensively. So when I look at this game, I think there are some matchups that we can win, and I'll show you that on the film. But I think there are some guys that could have a big game this week if the game plan is set up for that to take place and the execution is clean. We could have some guys have some massive performances versus the Arizona Cardinals. I really think this is a week we can score some points. And I think we may force a turnover or two, and I'll give you my score and more here in a second. But I think because of what I think is going to happen on the defensive side of the football, coupled with the offense kind of getting in gear a bit this week, I think you're going to see some points scored. And so because of that, I'm going to give you my prediction for this game. I'm just going to tell you right now that I got us winning this football game 30-24 over the Arizona Cardinals. And I think we can put up 30 this week. I really do. Here's my little cliff note for this game. I think we're going to force 2 turnovers of the Arizona Cardinals. One from Kyler Murray. We're going to bat one of these balls in the air, and we're going to pick it off, similar to the way San Francisco did last week. I think we're going to force a fumble of one of their skill guys. Somebody's going to put it on the carpet, and we're going to recover that fumble, and it's going to give us some great field position. And it may come in our own territory. Who knows? I just know we're going to force 2 turnovers, and we're going to do a great job of turning those turnovers into points like we did last week. And I also believe that this defense is going to slow down the Cardinals enough. I think you're going to see a ton of zone coverage this week. I don't think you're going to see a ton of man-to-man. That's how San Francisco got beat last week, with a ton of man-to-man in the fourth quarter and Kyler Murray taking off because guys had their backs turned and they weren't in any position to key quarterback and see what he was doing and react to him. And again, Kyler's not looking to break anybody off. If he sees contact is coming and imminent, he's looking to get down. So when guys have their backs turned, that's when he starts to feel real bullish and freaky. Now he feels like he can make plays. So I think you're going to get a lot of zone coverage, a lot of trying to keep everything in front of them. And I think they want to key quarterback and also want to make sure that they keep Kyler Murray in front of them and don't turn their backs to him. So I think you're going to get a heavy dosage of zone coverage in this ball game. We'll see what happens. But all in all, when it's all said and done, I think we do enough on the road to once again shock a lot of people around the league and get a win 30-24. I may regret this one because in my head, I'm saying Arizona's going to win this game, but my heart tells me we got a shot, man, and I think we're going to take advantage of it. Let's see what happens in this game. This game, and we talked about this earlier, and I can't wait to hear from you guys. What's your prediction? And give me a cliff note. Give me a footnote. Score and more. What do you think is going to happen in this football game? Looking forward to reading that from you guys. What do you think about this game? If we win this game, does this change the narrative? Does this change your perspective potentially about this team? Maybe you were just like me, 6-10 before the season, maybe 7-9. And if you beat Arizona, does that make you now all of a sudden think, hey, maybe we have something here. Maybe we are a year ahead of schedule. Maybe we can go 9-7, 10-6, possibly 11-5. Does this potential win, if they're able to get it, change your outlook on the season? That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me on this episode of Washington Football Nightly. I can't wait to watch this game. Bart Scott, can't wait. This should be a fun one. I'm looking for this team to be highly competitive. And as I've always said, I just want to get to the fourth quarter with a chance. That's all I'm asking for. Give me a chance in the fourth quarter to sneak one on the road. If we're in this game and we got a shot, I feel like we can steal it late. But it's a young team, and generally, and they're young too, but generally speaking, they went through a lot of their growing pains last year, however, and I think we may be going through some of those this year. We'll see. You know, we got a veteran coach, unlike the Cardinals, so we may be able to circumvent some of those growing pains and maybe fast track our way to being competitive this season. So whatever the case may be, enjoy your weekend. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. I want to thank you guys all that have signed up for Patreon. Thank you for your patronage in advance. And trust me, you're going to get your money's worth as we continue to put content on Patreon. So without any further ado, I'm going to glide to the side, allow you to get your weekend started, whether you're watching NBA playoff basketball, whether you're watching college football or NFL action. Do it responsibly. All right. Enjoy your weekend. We'll reconvene at a later date and time. You guys, take care. This has been Washington Football News, or Washington Football Nightly. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the